So particularly within job description, as I mentioned, at the similar sort of stage of generating an employment relationship, that's where you set a precedent for what your requirements are for that role, what your expectations are in terms of performance, and certainly you start to instigate that you know, those, you start to set the bar as to what you want. Induction, and I don't mean induction into the company, yes, an aspect of that, but predominantly induction into the role. So quite often you might find that line managers would, or teams may, allow the company induction to happen, and they allow sort of all the generic formal stuff, you know, this is your payroll number, all the generic stuff happen, and then that'll, you know, and then when it gets to sort of the point of the individual is now their responsibility and they need to induct them into their role and show them the way that they expect the role to be done, that kind of sometimes falls a bit lax. And the quality of that, the quality of specifically that aspect of the induction is really important. I think failure to set that precedence and failure to have those initial conversations about where the role is, what the role's to achieve, where it sits within the company's strategy, failure to deliver that conversation, to have that discussion, will definitely impact, you know, the individual's opportunity to show what they can do initially. And that sort of runs into the objectives as well. In that same sort of induction process into the role and into the team, a precedence definitely needs to be set in terms of objectives. So whether that be within the first, the first week, or if it's more appropriate to do that perhaps within the first 3 months, there absolutely should be a conversation where the line manager would sit down with the individual and say, okay, so you've been in the role now for a month or so or whatever, and we really need to understand, you know, about the aspects of your job description that are going to be directly linked to your objectives and where we want you to go over the next 12 months. And then likewise, I think that automatically sort of follows on to the reviews. And I think it would be really fair to say that many managers and line management perhaps don't even do reviews. And I don't mean formal performance, you know, outright performance related reviews. I'm talking about kind of those one-to-ones, those weekly discussions, updates, a recap, whatever it may be, relevant to the role and the activities in the role, to review that individual's progress, to update them on anything that needs to be included, and an opportunity for communication. I think that's all part and parcel of this performance management arena, really. And I think specifically within some of the performance management issues that I've experienced, where somebody might be seen to be underperforming, you can usually find that somewhere along this process something hasn't happened. There's some form of communication that's fallen down. So communication is really, really huge with regards to performance management, and you know, you would absolutely validate that with, you know, with an employee's view of their own performance as well. I think everybody would just about probably confirm that they would like to be communicated with and like to be clear on all of these aspects of their role. So yes, we'll have the informal reviews, and we'll have sort of the one-to-ones and all of that sort of stuff. But then we will of course have the more formal performance appraisals, and they may be 12 monthly. They may be a mid-year appraisal as well as a full-year appraisal, depending on the role, the size of the business's objectives, where the business is going, and how strategy might change throughout that year. And obviously, as touched on earlier on in this discussion, there is an element of teaching and learning within that performance management initiation. So, you know, a learning process, yes, an aspect of I say you'll do, but sort of, you know, in setting that precedence about what the role expects and what is required from the individual, there's an expectation that the line manager will teach or certainly coach an aspect of that.